Hold on a second. Sounds like my Roomba is attacking something out there. Hold up, guys. All right. Okay. My Roomba sounded like it was attacking something. I was like, oh my gosh. Hello, everybody. How y'all doing? There's my phone. Let me just make sure my Roomba is able to start again. But hopefully you guys are all having a good day. It's been one of those weeks. We're getting closer to the exam. Like, how many weeks away are we from the test? Let me see. Alrighty, we are here. We are. It looks like we're about, what, 4 weeks from the test? Wait, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're about 4-ish weeks from the test. It is coming, guys. It is coming here quickly. So, big thing though, I want to make sure you guys aren't feeling too scared by the test. It can be a lot, but we're going to be having our review session coming up in a couple weeks. So on the 21st and the 28th, we're going to be doing a 2-part review session where I cover lots of topics that will end up on the exam. So if that's something you're interested in, you're struggling, just come to the review session. It'll be, you'll be able to get a ticket to both days for one price. So you'll be able to come to both and we'll be able to hang out and it'll be a good time and we'll have lots of fun. So yeah, that's a big thing. But just wanted to kind of hop on here and answer some like really common NPTE questions that you guys have been asking. Hold on, let me pull it up. You people on TikTok, feel free to ask questions whenever. Just want to come up with some questions. So all right, let's pull up my questions that I have for you guys. Or like if you guys have any questions, just ask me. But I was gonna pull up some questions that people have been asking me as of lately. So again, if you have questions, yours will take priority. Okay. So I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about different study strategies. I've been making some videos on that. Also some questions about like PEAT exam results. Like if you're scoring this on your PEAT, how is that good? Like, are you ready kind of thing? So at this point, you should be scoring with at least a 570 or higher to make sure that you're getting close enough to pass the test. Because at this point, you should be taking a PEAT like this week. So then you can see where you're at. Maybe take the practice version so that you can see how that goes. And then when you get towards like maybe 2-ish weeks from now, like around Christmas, take the retired version so then you can see if you're really good to go with the test. So that's my suggestion for practice exams. Let me just check TikTok, make sure that if there's any questions. No questions on TikTok right now. We do have one on YouTube. I love your videos. Thank you so much. I've learned so much through them. You're welcome, Jay Garcia 4287. I'm glad you like them. People have asked, are my videos okay for PT students as well? Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Everything that we have to learn as PTAs, the PTs have to learn as well. So still fair game. Everybody has to know that. So that's one of the big questions that I've got. If you are a PT student and you want me to help you like really badly, we can always book a call and talk about it. Although I will just make sure I emphasize that I do specialize in PTAs. It's different. It's a little bit different with the test. Just with the PTs, the more eval, diagnostic, prognostic, overseeing the plan of care, connecting with different healthcare providers, making decisions for the plan of care, all of that. That's all relevant for PTs. So there's a little bit differences, but again, anything that PTs would have to know, like PTs have to know as well. So not exactly out of the ordinary for that. With that being said, some people are just like, how do I know if this is a PT versus a PTA question? If it's asking you to select specific outcome measures or select specific special tests and stuff like that, those are going to be more PT questions, asking like the prognosis for the patient. Differential diagnoses are definitely PT related. However, with the PTA exam, you have to understand the signs and symptoms associated with pathology. So then you can know when you see the pathology, what it's going to look like. It's not so much of you sitting there differentiating it between two, like you have all these symptoms. Is it one versus the other? That's more going to be a PT sort of question. The PTA one is going to say, here's all the symptoms, what's going on. It's not like you're deciding between two. It's like you're literally looking at all the answers being like, which one is it? It sounds very similar. And it honestly, I think it is the same. When they describe it like that, I feel like it's exactly the same. But just knowing for the PT version, it's more about selecting appropriate examination evaluation techniques to get you to your differential diagnosis versus PTA being like, here's the symptoms, or like this patient has this condition, what's it going to look like? That's more of what the PTA test is going to ask about. So just a little bit of a difference. I don't want you guys to feel dumb if you're seeing a PT question and you're like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. Like, you're not dumb. It's just different. So that's one of the questions. Some people have been asking me, they're like, hey, there's a lot of mobilizations on the test. Is that allowed? Because it's not allowed in my state. It's in federal tests, so you could move to another state and do them. Like, for example, in Pennsylvania, you can't do any mobilizations, but if you went and moved across the border into Maryland, you could. So it's like, you might not live in the same place forever, So, and you can be a travel PTA. Honestly, I encourage travel. I think a lot of people, or at least professors, think, oh, you shouldn't travel until XYZ. Go travel. Earn that cash. It's fine. It's better to be confused with more money than confused with less money. That's how I view it. Yeah, so feel free to ask any questions, guys, if you guys are on here live. Happy to help. I'm pulling up my list of questions. How many rest days should you take while you're studying? I usually recommend like 1 day a week while you're studying, because if you take 2, it can start getting a little bit lax, and especially a lot of people start studying like 8 to 12 weeks before the test. I don't want you guys to run out of time. So that's one of the things that I want to make sure you guys are not running out of time with. So that's one of the biggest things. I talked about what score you should be getting on your practice exams now. By the time you get to the test, ideally, you want to have above a 630 on your PED exam. So then you have enough wiggle room come test day. So hopefully that makes sense, because obviously you need a 600 to pass. How long does it take the average person to study? I mean, everybody's going to be different. People study different times, and different lengths of time is what they need to study. That sentence came out wrong. But the important thing is that you're not comparing yourself to other people. I know I posted something earlier, like, stop comparing yourself to your friends. Stop comparing your studying to your friends. You are you. You are different. You are yourself. Like, don't be trying to completely copy somebody else's study strategy, or don't even try to copy your study strategy from PTA school. Like, it's gonna be different. Suscríbete. I'm assuming that means you've subscribed. No, I know that means you've subscribed. Gracias por su. It's not soportar. That's not support. That's like something else. Ayuda. No, I'm the Ayuda. Sorry. My brain isn't working right now. Oh, it says bonsoir. Oh, wait. That's French. I don't know that. So that means good evening, right? I'm trying to learn. I watched some videos, some guy racing with like dogs, and I learned the words for left and right, but now I kind of forgot them. One starts with a G and one starts with a D. I was like, look at that. How many hours a day should I be studying? So I did just make a video about this, and that was the next question on my list of questions that people pre-submitted. I usually suggest our students to study about 2 to 3 hours a day, and then leave at least one day where you can study 4. So then you can schedule that, have that available for you to schedule your practice exams. So you can spread that out through the day. Maybe you do an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, studying a half hour over an hour long lunch break, get some time in. Just a reminder that listening to the podcast, like my podcast that I have for you guys, you can download it anywhere. Spotify, Apple Music, it's everywhere. I would make sure that you, how do I describe this? I would make sure that you can use the podcast for help, but I just want to make sure that you're not only using the podcast to study. I've had some people say, oh, can I just study your podcast and pass? I mean, there's been people who do that, but it's not exactly the end all be all. Like, you need to be doing other things like taking practice tests and reading. Some people are like, but the reading doesn't work for me. But you're going to have to read for the test. So it's going to have to work for you. So we're going to have to figure out how to do that. The only people who aren't reading at all are the people who have readers for them. You're going to have to read chart reviews and read documentation. So that's why it's a necessary skill to have for the reading part. So yeah, hopefully that helps though, because that is a common question a lot of people ask about how many hours to study. All right, looks like no questions on Instagram. Oh, I just saw how this pops up. It pops up in the top of the screen on Instagram. Cool. All right, looks like I'm checking on TikTok. Still no questions over on TikTok. That is A-okay. All right. Yes. I see that we have people from my Spotify Wrapped, like for creators, that there was people who listen to me from 70 different countries. I'm like, wow. Because I thought it was like the US, Mexico, and like the Philippines were like the biggest ones. But I got a lot of UK people on here. Hello. Nice to see you all. Thank you for coming to my channel and resources. I appreciate helping you guys. I had a lot of people send me their little things that I was their top Spotify podcast this year, and I really appreciated that, guys. That was fun. Yeah. So a good thing to talk about is people are like, should I start with content review or do practice questions first when I study? I like to do practice questions first when you're doing a study session. Like, let's say you pull out the PTA 365 question of the day. Because at the end of the day, you're studying to take a test, okay? So I think it's good when we start with test questions so you can kind of prime the brain for being like, okay, this is what we're going to go after. This is what we're going to study. So I think that that will be helpful. I just realized I'm not in this frame on TikTok, and Brooke has come and she's liked the live a bazillion times, but I appreciate that. Thank you, Brooke. We appreciate your support. That's weird because usually it only pops up once when somebody likes the live. How do I get back into studying after being clocked out from material for a while? I usually suggest just taking a practice exam. That's usually a good way to just kind of like, because you'll see the result and you'll be like, oh shit, I gotta study. And it also gives you a baseline of where you're at, so you know exactly where you're at. For example, I wanted to get back into riding my Peloton bike for my endurance classes, so the power zones. So I ended up doing like the power zone test for 20 minutes. That sucked, but it gave me a baseline so I could see where I was at. And it wasn't as bad as I thought, but I was like, okay, we can work on this. So that's usually a good way to kind of do a factory reset on yourself. Just go take a practice exam. That's my favorite thing to do. Well, not favorite thing. It's not fun, but yeah. Oh, I see the Swiss flag. It says anyone from Switzerland. It was on my list of top countries. Like, it's in my top 10 of people. So I guarantee there are other people who are listening who are from there. But I'd love to go to Switzerland at some point. I want to, I ski. So I want to ski in the Swiss Alps. I feel like that would be fun. There's some mountains that are on the Epic Pass, which is what I have. So that's on my bucket list to do that someday. I think it would be beautiful. I'm struggling with cardiac medications. Any recommendations? A good thing to study with the cardiac meds, and this is what I tell people all the time, make sure that you're studying the cardiac meds. Like, know what they do first. So if I tell you a patient's on a beta blocker, like, know what the beta blocker is. Like, know what it does. Know it's used to manage hypertension. It'll slow down the heart rate, all that sort of stuff. And that's how it decreases blood pressure. Excuse me. Sorry. So just keeping that in mind, knowing what the medication does first. Then you will know, okay, what are the side effects? And my best way to think about it is, how will this fuck up my therapy session? So if a patient's on a beta blocker, they could have orthostatic hypotension and fall and pass out. That would really fuck up my therapy session. So that's how I like to think about it, is what the side effects they have. How is that going to mess up things? How is that going to make things worse? What do we need to do differently to manage that? So slow transitions, having the patient make sure they're doing some ankle pumps as they sit up and just taking it slow with those transitions. Excuse me, sorry. Sometimes I'll just randomly start yawning when I'm talking a lot. Apparently it's like to get more oxygen in because my brain is moving really fast. So that's my thing with cardiac meds. Understand what they do, understand what they are first, and then you can like pair them up by name. So saying like, okay, beta blocker, that can be, our Lopressor. A lot of people try to get the names with the medication first. I'd rather you understand what it does first, because if you understand what it does, that's going to take you a lot farther than just trying to memorize the name. Because you can just look up the name. That's easy. Knowing what it does, that's a more complicated thing. That's going to greatly, more intensely impact your understanding of the material. Because like, if I was like your CI, I'd want you to know like what a beta blocker is and what it does, versus you being able to like look at their chart and memorize what medication that is. Because if they say, oh, that's a beta blocker, I'm like, okay, well, what's a beta blocker? You're like, I don't know. And I don't know what it does. I don't know what I'm looking for. That's more concerning than if I'm like, okay, well, this is a beta blocker. And then you're like, oh yeah, so we got to be careful with the transitions because their heart rate response to exercise is also going to be diminished because their heart rate is lower and their blood pressure is lower. So we got to keep an eye on that. Like, I'd rather you know all that, because that's actually going to apply to what we're talking about with the patient and safety, versus you being able to rattle off like different beta blocker names. Does that make sense, Jay Garcia? Like, understanding what it does versus understanding, like, being able to memorize names. Hopefully that helps. Sorry if that was a long, drawn out explanation, but I think that's important. Alrighty. Looks like we don't have any more questions on TikTok for now. I like that it does this little AI summary. Feisty Poots says, you've helped me so much. I led my study session and we all passed the PEEPs last week. Thank you, Doc. Oh, you're welcome, friends. Thank you. I'm glad you guys passed. That's awesome. And it takes a lot of, oh, good. Jay said that made sense. It takes a lot of like anxiety. It takes away a lot of anxiety when you pass your PEEP. You're like, okay, I can do this now. I can do this now. Like, it's like, the light is at the end of the tunnel. Makes you feel a lot more confident going into test day. So that's why I usually try to suggest our students to get above that passing score on the PEEP. Let me check Instagram. I don't think there's any questions on Instagram. Yo, Instagram, y'all are dead. No questions over there. That's okay. We appreciate the support. By we, I mean me. When I say we, I mean I'm the only one in this business. It's just me and my cats and Nick. So don't worry. Somebody just says, what? That's what I say. What? Just what? So true. How long do you need to start prepping for PTA? Are you talking about like for the PTA test or like to get into PTA school? If you're talking about the PTA test, I usually recommend like 8 to 12 weeks before the test to make sure you're honing in on studying. Ideally, if you're starting your studying 3 to 4 months in advance, you're in a good spot. So I'm assuming that's what you mean. If you're a foreign trained PT trying to take the PTA test to be able to practice in the US, I would probably start studying 6 months in advance because there's a lot of nuances to learn. And so, yes, for PTA and PTE. Yep. And if you are a foreign trained PT trying to practice in the US, I would suggest using Final Frontier. They are specialized in that and they have extra resources available to help students with credentialing and walking them through that process. They're just specialized in it. If you're already like all set up to where you're like, you have all the credentialing approved and you're like, Brie, I like how you teach things. I just got to go take the test. I can definitely help you with that. They're a good company. They teach the right stuff. I teach the right stuff. It's really just about like what works best for you. I just know they specialize in foreign trained individuals. I'm more specialized in like neurodivergent students. That's more of my thing, which you can fall in both categories, but we're all here to help. I gave FSBPT score with CW5. I have no idea what that means. What do you mean you gave the FSBPT score? Like you gave them your score or did you take the test? Because I gave FSBPT score does not make sense in English. I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. You're saying I took the NPTE or like you submitted everything? See, I don't know what this means. See, this is why I don't specialize. This is a perfect example. But if you explain, that's great because I like to learn, but I just don't know what this means. Maybe it does make sense. You have scores? Okay. Cool. I'm not sure what the scores are though, or what they mean. So, no, it's okay. You're fine. Sorry, it's type error. Yeah, no problem. I just want to make sure I understand what people are saying because I want to make sure that I'm helping the best that I can. But yeah, I would say for you, yeah, like 6 months, usually good. I know when you get credentialed, they give you a certain amount of time to take the test. So sometimes that impacts your study time pretty much. So, but yeah, no, we're happy to help. It's a lot sometimes. Oh, Pavon is on both Instagram and on YouTube. Look at that. You can comment on Instagram, right? Like credential evaluations as foreign PT. Oh, okay. Okay, so you submitted all of your stuff for credentialing, so you're just waiting for credentialing. Yeah. Don't try to deal with anything with the test. Like get your credentialing done first. Obviously studying for the test in the meantime, but don't start your hardcore studying until you finally get approved for the exam because it takes so long. It takes so long. But good luck. You're in a good spot to start preparing. So watching my videos, listening to their podcasts, getting involved in that sort of stuff is good. If you're interested in a prep course, though, I would wait till you get all your credentialing approved so then you can maximize your use with the prep course because a lot of them are time constrained. Like my prep course you can only use for a year. I think theirs you can only use for a year. So there we go. Abner Travis, I failed twice already. I found out I have testing anxiety. I passed 5 out of 6 PETs. Any advice? I finally received accommodations as well. Trust me, those accommodations are going to make a huge difference with your studying. Huge difference. So just make sure you're continuing to take your practice exams and going from there. Like you want to make sure you're not overwhelming yourself. But the accommodations will help a lot. Especially if it's like a private room or like extra time. Usually that can make a huge difference. Right? Instagram is still silent. Hello? Anybody home? Instagram? There's literally nobody there, actually. What should I be doing the day before the exam? So this is a lot of stuff I'm going to talk about at my review session that we're going to do on the 21st and 28th. So you want the full shebang, definitely come to that. We're going to do test questions, test preparation, scenario questions, all of that stuff. But the day before the test, I would just chill out. Like I told myself I couldn't study past like 3 p.m. just so I could rest. But really, I would just like maybe study an hour, if even. Like you don't have to study really. Some people are like, if I don't study the day before, I feel like my life is like thrown off. So it really just kind of depends what kind of person you are. But don't try to be learning new stuff. And please, for the love of God, stop taking practice exams the day before your test. That is so stupid. I'm gonna judge you for it, and I'm gonna pull out the like shame bell from Game of Thrones and be like, shame, shame. Like it's just you're burning yourself out. That's like running a marathon the day before you run a marathon. That's so dumb. Don't do that. Don't do that. Take your practice exams with plenty of time. Give yourself time to relax. If you already bought all the PETs, it sounds like you've already probably taken all the PETs. There's other practice exams out there to take. You can take, therapy ed, score builders. I have practice exams as well. Therapy ed, therapy ed, PT final exam, NPTE Final Frontier, they all have practice exams. So you can take a third party one as well. If you've already taken all the PETs, I think taking another PET, if you took it recently, like if you took the PET within like a couple months, it probably would be beneficial to get it again. But all right, guys, I can be on here for another couple minutes and then I gotta skedaddle. I'm gonna go to the gym workout. Don't ever stop working out when it comes to your not practice, when it comes to your study. I am not forming words today. My goodness. Yeah, there's a girl named Lindsay PTA. She has a study guide. Use it and then take the practice exam. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say good things about her. Yeah. I forget her username and everything. But yeah, she passed with like a 7 something. So she's been selling her notes. People find them really helpful. Okay, one last question on my scrap paper. What do you recommend I write on there? Another great question that we'll talk about this weekend. I recommend people to just write their first name, last name, comma, PTA, because it kind of centers you in like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing this to become a PTA. Like I can do this. Let's do some, positive manifestation basically on this page. And some people like will write their kids' names or like why they decided to become a PTA, just to kind of really ground them and lock them in. And so like when they start freaking out, they look at that. I wrote, you are smart and worthy of becoming a PTA. And then I signed my name like Brianna Drab, comma PTA. And then when I took my PT one a couple years later, I signed it. I was like, you're smart and worthy of becoming a physical therapist. And then I signed it Dr. Brianna Drab, PT, DPT at the end. So that kind of helped me stay grounded because all the stuff that you might write on your cheat sheet that's like content wise, it's already in your head. As long as you stay calm and don't freak out, you can recall that information. So that's why I put like a calming, like centering kind of mantra at the top. So then you're not freaking out. So that's what I like to do. I know it's a little bit different, but hopefully that kind of helps. I know it's not exactly. Lindsay Scorsone. Okay. I bought it already and I'm currently using it and I have PT final exam. Yeah, so PT final exam has tests, so you can use that after. That'll help you out. All right, friends, I'm going to wrap it up here in like a minute or two. We have an hola. Hola. I had something I wanted to say and it just escaped my mind. There you go. Y'all are going to do great. It's definitely a stressful experience, but it will feel so good when you're on the other side. What is your opinions on the Typical PT app? I have not used the Typical PT app myself. I will have full transparency. I have met with the individual who owns it. Well, one of them, the other owner would not meet because they wanted to remain anonymous, but I found them anyways. Because you can't be anonymous when you own a business. There's ways to find out who they are. The one is a PT and the other is like a software developer and everything. the platform that they've created is it's very good, and it's keeping up with the tech times. They're very responsive when there are errors. I do think that there are some errors on their platform. Last time I had somebody look at it, I just don't know too much about it, but they are trying to basically compete with TrueLearn. And I will say I've seen more errors on TrueLearn than I've seen on the typical PT app. I think typical PT would benefit from having a face to the business, because in a world of tech and AI, having yourself be completely, like, even if you have like a flow from Progressive is like the face of Progressive, like I think you need a face for your business. But yeah, they're pretty popular on Instagram. They definitely are geared towards helping people. That's just like, as a fellow business owner, my slight critiques for them. But I people find them helpful. Their test questions are much harder than what the boards is asking. But I know a lot of resources make their test questions harder. I'll make some questions harder and then some easier. I really try to keep like a medium amount for like a medium difficulty for my questions, because I want to test the middle of the line and see where you're at, kind of like a benchmark. But some people said their questions are too hard, and they're more geared towards PTs, which is correct. It is more geared towards PTs versus PTAs. But I'll have to look into it more to get 100% of a review of that. But I'll have to talk to them again, because I want to see what their new focus is. So I hope they have taken into, this was some stuff that I wrote them months ago. So hopefully they've taken that into consideration. I think that would be helpful. Oh, thank you. Forget what I'm doing for my workout. I might be doing squats. Whoa. Hello. Yeah, typical PT is running a lot of ads lately. I've never run an ad. I couldn't tell you how to run an ad. I just post videos and people show up to things. I don't know how to run an ad. I couldn't tell you. All right. Ooh, hold up. I always take a deep breath before each section in difficult questions. Yes. Taking a deep centering breath, super helpful. Definitely get your brain back into reality. I love that. How much are your exams for PTA? So I have, if you go to my website and go to resources, you'll see my exams. You can purchase my full length practice exam for $47. So it's just one test, but it's got scenario questions and everything. And then afterwards, this video is me explaining how to do it. Now, the software isn't available for me to like calculate people's like total breakdown, but I tell you how to do it manually. So it is a little bit of like tallying things up at the end. But honestly, with the explanations of like me walking you through the test afterwards, people are like, I don't even care about tallying my stuff. Like, that's helpful enough. Because I think a lot of times the problem is in they'll just say, this is the answer because it's the answer. And it's like, that's not helpful. Like, walk me through it, please. So, yeah. Oh, man. Still no questions on Instagram. Alrighty. And I hope that didn't sound like I was like talking bad about like typical PT. It's just, when I talked to them the last time, they seemed a little disorganized. So hopefully they're getting more organized, because I think that they have a good platform that can help a lot of people, and I want them to help people. So yeah. Okie dokie, friends. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. Hopefully this was helpful. I will try to go live more often, especially leading up to exam day. Oh, yeah. No, I'm happy to help you, Pavan. Hopefully you have a good rest of your day, too. All right. Bye, TikTok people. Bye, Instagram people. Bye, Facebook people. Bye, YouTube people. See you later. Bye.